Okay, hello YouTube. Today I'm just going to show you a cute little idea that I managed to make work in the Petrovs. I'd actually found this idea quite a while ago, and then I'd prepared it with my engine, and I'd memorized it, and I'd been waiting for an opportunity to play it against somebody. I can't say that I'm the first person to come up with this idea, although I did come up with it independently of anybody else that played it in the past. When I did a search on it, it turns out that it's been played, I guess, only two previous times, and I don't think it's been played at all in the Masters database. So it's not completely a new idea, but at the same time, like I said, I did come up with it independently. I didn't know about these other games when I came up with the idea. And it is an incredibly clever idea. Of course, I came up with it with the help of Stockfish, so without any further ado, I'll show you this one game that I finally managed to play in it, and it gave me all kinds of happiness, and I'm going to share it with you in the hopes that maybe you can replicate this game, because it is a really clever idea against the Petrovs. So anyways, the game starts out e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, we have the Petrovs, knight takes e5, d6, knight f3, knight takes e4, d4. This is all just mainline theory. So now we're going to have d5, we're going to have bishop d3, bishop d6, castles kingside. It is really important for those of you that are just curious about the theory. It is really important that we don't play c4 early in a lot of these positions. That's really whether they play bishop d6 or knight c6 or bishop e7. Against any of these moves, we usually don't want to play an early c4 while the king is still in the middle, because a disruptive bishop check will usually kind of upset our apple cart. So it's just much better to castle first and then play c4. This is just a really good general rule. So we're going to go ahead and castles, and then we're going to play c4 and then c6. And then my personal preference here is not to play, as you can see, kind of the main move here is knight c3. I don't like this move. I think c takes d5 is a much better move because it cuts down on your theoretical preparation. Knight c3 gives black the option of playing one of two lines. He can play knight c3, bc3, and then dc4, or he can transpose into the main line by playing knight c3, bc3, and then say bishop g4, and then we're going to be back in the main line anyway with cd5, cd5. So I personally just prefer to take on d5 and just have to memorize one line of theory instead of two. So cd5, cd5, then we're going to play knight c3, then they don't really have anything better, knight c3, bc3, and then they're going to play their bishop g4, and we're going to play rook b1. Now, I have discussed kind of in the past why it's super important that you play rook b1 instead of the move pawn to h3. It's actually really critical that you refrain from playing the move pawn to h3, is as much as it is a very instinctual move, because you actually want this bishop to be on the g4 square. And the reason for that is in the main line, where they play something like, say, b6, and you play rook b5, you want to actually be threatening to take this pawn. And it's kind of a clever little bit of calculation, because it looks like they can't, that you can't take this pawn now because of bishop h2. But if they were to force you to capture it, you can go ahead and take this pawn right away. The point being is when they take on h2, you're going to take back, and their queen is hanging, and more importantly, their bishop is hanging. And you might be wondering, what does this have to do with h3? Well, I'll show you in 1 second. So here, if they play, bishop takes d1, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and then rook takes d1, white has two pieces for this bishop, and white is doing spectacularly well. As a matter of fact, white is quite a bit better here. So why does it matter in terms of h3 whether you play this rook b1, h5 idea? Because if you play h3, this bishop ends up on the h5 square. And then when you play rook b5, they can go ahead and play a6 because there is no threat to take here. The reason is because after takes, they're going to have bishop h2. You can do the same thing, but when the queen captures the rook, it now defends the bishop, which is now located on this very unfortunate h5 square. So you can't just simply respond to queen takes rook with queen takes bishop, which would again be a situation where you have two pieces for the rook. So in this case, you're simply down material and you'd be completely lost. So here white would be losing. So it's very important to refrain from h3. And actually, in my idea, it's also important to refrain from h3. So there's this other line that goes knight on b to d7. So now the main line here, as you can see, is pawn to h3 is the main line now. So pawn to h3, and then we play chess from here. But I've always been kind of bored with this line, and one day I was just kind of wondering, in the main line of this, we do end up sacrificing an exchange with white. So if we go back to the main line and we have b6, and we play something like rook b5, and we have bishop c7, to defend this pawn, We do actually end up sacrificing an exchange. After h3, a6, as you can see, the main line here is to give up the exchange with h6, g4, takes on b5, we gain a tempo with queen c2, forcing them to weaken their queen side with either, g6, h6, whatever, usually g6, and then the typical move here is just to get one of our pawns back with bishop take b5, and then we just continue with an attack against this king, usually with moves like g5, g3, king g2, rook h1, etc. And then we can also bolster our position with our bishop with a4. And white has more than enough compensation for the exchange. He's got the two bishops. He's got weaknesses on black's king side that he can work with. And in general, this is just considered slight advantage white. As you can see, I have one game in the database here with me, so where I did quite well. So anyways, let's go back to this position with knight on b to d7. So this is what I was motivated to try. I was motivated to try rook takes b7, which, as you can see, it actually kind of scores kind of badly. So the reason it scores kind of badly is because, of course, as soon as you play rook takes b7, black can trap that rook with knight to b6. But again, I'm thinking to myself, in the main line, we sacrifice an exchange. So why can't I sacrifice an exchange in this position? Like, what's the worst that can happen? And that sent me down the path of examining this line, rook to b7, knight to b6. And then, with the help of the computer, I found this move, bishop g5. So this move is really the crux of the whole thing, this move, bishop g5. As you can see, it's very seldom played, but the few times that it gets played, it's been played 5 total times on the database, and it is won 100% of the time. So people in the know are playing this move, and this move is incredibly clever. Okay, so the idea behind bishop g5, not only does the computer kind of back it up, it's getting close to an equal assessment here. The idea behind bishop g5 is, of course, the move queen c8 is kind of forced. And then the computer just recommends just holding the exchange temporarily with a move like bishop a6. Although I have discovered on my own that after something like queen to c8, it is actually possible, like if we just throw the engine on right here, it is actually possible to play something like bishop e7. And then after, say, queen to b7, we can play bishop d6, and we can sacrifice the exchange this way. And this leads to an incredibly interesting position. Like, say, after rook e8, we can follow up with bishop takes h7, king takes h7, knight g5, king g8, queen g4. And, okay, we're down an exchange, but we have very interesting compensation for this exchange. And if you actually let the engine run for a while and you throw out some lines, the computer, as you can see, the assessment starts going down for black and it starts going up for white. And this is actually a very complex position. It's very unclear if this is bad for white. This is maybe worth a shot. Although, again, we're already in territory where this stuff has never been played before, so very unexplored territory. So that's an option, but of course bishop a6 is fine as well. As you can see, bishop a6, the assessment here is not that low. Bishop takes a6, the computer's giving queen c3, bishop e7, bishop takes e7, rook takes e7 is supposed to be close to equal for white, and of course white still has a lot of really good attacking chances here. So I think this is also an acceptable position for white to play. White isn't doing bad, the material is equal, everything should be relatively fine. So this is fine as well, and as you can see, the one time this was played between two fairly high-rated players, white did end up winning. So bishop a6 is an alternative, but the real reason that I'm doing this is because the move f6 looks incredibly tempting. It looks like if we play f6, we're attacking this bishop, and this rook on b7 is still trapped. And I finally got the opportunity to fling out the main idea of this trap, which is after after pawn to f6, I did get to play the move bishop h6, which is the move that I'd prepared. And this is just a really cool move. So the idea is they pretty much have to take, because I'm threatening just rook takes g7, which would be completely winning. So, I mean, the only alternative would be something like bishop c7 to try to block things up, but then even after bishop c7, white's actually doing pretty good. So, like, if I turn on the engine here, bishop c7, we can, simply retreat this bishop, and nothing bad has happened to our position. But of course, now when they play queen c8, they're not hitting the pawn on c3 anymore, so we're not going to be losing any material there. So bishop c7 is possible, but for the most part, it just kind of seems like when people are looking at this, that the only move that they have is to play g captures h6, but g captures h6 is completely losing, and it loses to a really cool move. So I'm going to turn off the engine so you can take a look at it. So bishop takes, g takes h6, and okay, you can kind of see what my next move is, and it was a really good next move. and the move here is knight e5. So this is the whole idea. You play this knight e5 move, and this move just, being able to play this move in a game, it just made me kind of smile. I was very happy about it. When you play this type of move in a game, and as you can see, this has never been played in the Masters database, so this has never been played in top-level competition or anything like that, so this is still relatively unexplored. It's really only been played in blitz chess and Lee chess, maybe 2 times, 3 times, so really unexplored line, really unexplored idea, but very, very cool trap. After knight e5, you're sacrificing your queen, and of course they can't take the queen, and stop and pause the video and see if you can find it. They can't take the queen because you have bishop takes h7, king h8, and knight g6 is mate. So that's the whole point. And of course, if they take the knight, they're just walking into queen takes g4, which also should be winning. So my opponent played the move pawn to f5, and I did find the move queen takes g4, and my opponent resigned. The whole point being that you can't take the queen, because if you take the queen, you have bishop takes h7, king h8, knight g6 mate. And if you look at the computer assessment here, the computer just thinks the best move is to, I guess, block with the queen. But then it's giving, +6 for white after simply retreating the queen. And, of course, this king is open. The material is not equal. White is actually up a pawn, but the computer is actually giving +5 here. The point being that white is going to be winning some more material here because he's just got such a dominant position with all of his pieces, and this king is just wide open. There's just too much going on. Okay, so that's just my cool little trap. So just kind of to review, this is basically the idea. When they play knight d7, you just rip this pawn, and then when they trap your knight, you play bishop g5. And also, a secondary point here to why this move works is there is this tactical thing, because it almost looks like you can play bishop takes f3 here, but you have bishop takes here, bishop takes queen, and if it wasn't for this bishop takes b6, this would be totally unsound. But you have bishop b6, and then rook b6, and this is actually a double attack. And it's a double attack that holds. Like after bishop c7, you would play rook b7, and now you are getting your piece back miraculously. It looks like you're losing a piece there. It looks like you should be losing a piece, but you are getting it back, and the engine confirms that. The engine is giving plus 0.5 there. So that's the whole tactical justification for bishop g5. Not only queen c8 and f6, but also it holds up against bishop takes it holds up against bishop takes f3. And of course, it holds up pretty easily against queen takes g5 as well. We actually have this check, and then they can't even take back. Like if they play king takes here, we're winning a whole queen with check, so that's totally winning. And if they play king h8, we're going to be playing knight takes g5, bishop takes d1, rook takes d1, and this position is apparently just almost completely winning for white, amazingly enough. So any attack on the knight or any attempt to trap the bishop doesn't seem to work. Part of the problem is we're threatening this check, picking up this bishop on d6. So they really kind of have to meet that check. And if they meet it with something like bishop f4, we can counterattack the bishop on f4 while threatening to retreat. And we're just going to be up material. So this is the idea. This clever kind of bishop g5, and then f6, and then bishop h6, gh6, knight e5 winning. So that's your idea, and it's a cool, it's not quite, I'm going to call it a novelty, because it's been played like twice, and only in blitz chess, and third time, I guess, by me, and only in blitz chess. So this is a novelty. You have an opportunity to play this against people, and really surprise them, because this is like a brand new move. I think this could be easily tried, like on the master level, or even above. I think it's a very cool idea, and I think it's a fun idea to play. And of course, if you get in this early win, it makes it even better. So, anyways, I hope you found these ideas helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess, and I hope you learned some ideas that you can use in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.